Yuna walked through the dark tunnel with her flashlight in one hand and her access card in the other. The walls around her were old. Very old. They were made of a metal that nobody used anymore. The air smelled like dust and forgotten time. She had worked as an archivist for 12 years. Her job was simple. She organized old files, old books, and old records that nobody cared about. Most days were boring. Most days, she sat at her desk and read documents about trade agreements from 200 years ago. But today was different. 3 days ago, a construction team had found something under the old government building in Seoul. They had been digging to make a new train tunnel when their machines hit something hard. Something that should not have been there. Yuna reached the end of the tunnel. In front of her stood a massive door. It was made of the same strange metal as the walls. There were symbols on it that she did not recognize. They looked almost like Korean letters, but older, much older. Her communication device buzzed. She looked at the screen and saw a message from Tae. "Are you there yet?" the message said. Tae was her partner on this project. He was not human. He came from a world called Valora, far away in the galaxy. He was a historian who specialized in ancient civilizations. The Galactic Council had sent him to help investigate this discovery. Yuna typed back, "Yes," standing in front of the door now. "Can you open it?" Yuna looked at the door again. There was a small panel on the right side. She touched it, and it lit up with a soft blue light. The panel scanned her hand, then her face, then something deeper, something she could not explain. The door made a sound like thunder. Slowly, it began to open. Yuna stepped inside. The room was huge. It stretched far into the darkness, bigger than any building she had ever seen. The ceiling was so high that her flashlight could not reach it. Along the walls stood thousands of containers, each one glowing with a faint light. "Tae," she whispered into her device, "you need to see this." 2 hours later, Tae arrived. He was tall and thin, with silver skin and large dark eyes. His people, the Valorans, were known for their love of knowledge and history. When he saw the room, he stopped walking and stared. "This is impossible," he said. "What do you mean?" Tae walked to one of the glowing containers. He touched it gently. "These are storage units. Data storage. But the technology is..." He paused. "It is beyond anything in the galaxy, beyond anything the Council has ever seen." Yuna felt her heart beat faster. "But this is Earth. We are a young species. We only joined the galactic community 200 years ago." "Yes," Tae said quietly. "That is what makes this impossible." They spent the next several days exploring the archive. Tae brought equipment to read the data in the containers. Most of the files were damaged or encrypted, but slowly, piece by piece, they began to understand what they had found. On the 8th day, Tae finally broke through the encryption on a large file. His face went pale as he read the contents. "Yuna," he said, "come here." She walked over and looked at his screen. The file contained records, dates, locations, maps of star systems, images of ships that looked both familiar and strange. "I do not understand," she said. "What is this?" Tae turned to look at her. His dark eyes were wide with something she had never seen before. "Fear. These are records of human space travel," he said. "But they are not from 200 years ago. They are from 12,000 years ago." Yuna laughed. It was a nervous laugh. "That is not possible. 12,000 years ago, humans were living in small villages. We were just learning to farm." "That is what we believed," Tae said. "That is what everyone believed. But these records say something different. They say that 12,000 years ago, humanity had a massive empire. They had ships that could cross the galaxy in days. They had weapons that could destroy stars." Yuna sat down slowly. Her legs felt weak. "If that is true, then what happened? Where did it all go?" Tae scrolled through more of the file. His hands were shaking. "I am still reading. There is so much data here. But I found one file that is different from the others. It is labeled, 'The Great Forgetting.' What does it say? Tay was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. It says that humanity chose to forget. They did not lose their empire. They did not fall to enemies. They destroyed it themselves. They burned their ships. They erased their records. They chose to become primitive again. Yuna stared at him. Why would anyone do that? I do not know yet, but there is more. Tay pointed to a name in the file. It mentioned someone called Commander Day and a scientist named Hana. They were the leaders of this project. They were the ones who decided to erase everything. Yuna stood up and walked to the nearest container. She placed her hand on it. The metal was cold under her fingers. All her life, she had been told that humans were a young species, simple, new to the galaxy, still learning. But now she understood that it was all a lie. Not a lie told by others, but a lie that humanity had told to itself. We need to keep reading, she said. We need to understand why they did this. Tay nodded. But we must be careful. If the Galactic Council learns about this, they will want to know why humanity hid their past. They will ask questions that could put your people in danger. Yuna looked at the endless rows of containers stretching into the darkness. 12,000 years of hidden history. 12,000 years of secrets. Then we keep it between us, she said. For now, but deep in her heart, she knew that some secrets do not stay hidden forever. Whatever humanity had done 12,000 years ago, whatever they had been running from, it was still out there, waiting, and Yuna had just opened the door. 12,000 years earlier, Commander Day stood on the bridge of the warship Eternal Dawn and watched a planet burn. The planet was called Voroth Prime. It had been the home of the Vorothian Empire, the last enemy of humanity. For 300 years, the Vorothians had attacked human colonies. They had killed billions of people. They had promised to wipe humanity from the stars. Now they were the ones who were gone. Day felt nothing as he watched the flames spread across the planet's surface. He should have felt victory. He should have felt pride. Instead, he felt empty. A voice came from behind him. The bombardment is complete, Commander. Voroth Prime has been sterilized. Day did not turn around. And the other Vorothian worlds? All destroyed. The Vorothian species is now extinct. Extinct. Such a simple word for such a terrible thing. Billions of lives ended. An entire civilization erased from existence. Thank you, Lieutenant, Day said. You are dismissed. The lieutenant left. Day stood alone on the bridge, watching the dying planet. His communication device buzzed. He looked at the screen and saw a message from Hana. Meet me on Station 7. We need to talk. Station 7 was a research facility hidden in the dark space between star systems. It was where Hana and her team worked on humanity's most secret projects. Day took a small transport ship and flew there alone. Hana was waiting for him in her laboratory. She was a small woman with kind eyes. But those eyes looked tired now. She had not slept in days. You saw it, she said. Voroth Prime. I did. Hana walked to a large screen on the wall. She touched it, and it showed an image of the galaxy. Thousands of stars were marked in red. Do you know what these are? She asked. Day shook his head. These are all the species we have destroyed in the past 1,000 years. The Vorothians, the Krell, the Sylvan, the Makers, the Deep Ones. 47 species. Day. 47 civilizations that existed for millions of years, and we erased them all. Day felt something cold move through his chest. They were enemies. They attacked us first. Did they? Hana turned to face him. The records say so. But I have been looking deeper into those records. Do you know what I found? Tell me. The Krell did not attack us first. We attacked them because we were afraid they might attack us someday. The Sylvan were peaceful. They died because they controlled resources we wanted. The Makers were not even hostile. They were simply different, and we could not accept different. Day sat down heavily in a chair. What are you saying? I am saying that we have become the monsters, Day. We started as a small species on a small planet. We were afraid of the darkness between the stars. So we built weapons. We built ships. We told ourselves that we were protecting our people. But somewhere along the way, we stopped being afraid. We became the thing that others feared. Day looked at his hands. These were the hands that had ordered the destruction of entire worlds. These were the hands that had signed death warrants for billions. I am a monster, he said quietly. No. Hana walked over and knelt beside him. We are all monsters, the entire human race. We have so much power now that nothing can stop us. Nothing can challenge us, and that is the problem. What do you mean? Hana stood up and walked back to the screen. I have run the calculations. In 500 years, at our current rate of expansion, we will control the entire galaxy. Every species will either serve us or die. In 1,000 years, there will be nothing left but humans. We will be alone in a dead galaxy, surrounded by the graves of everyone we killed. Day felt sick. There must be another way. There is. Hana touched the screen again. A new image appeared. It showed a diagram of something complex, something Day did not understand. I call it the Great Forgetting. Explain. We cannot change what we are, Hana said. Humans are violent. We are competitive. We are afraid of things that are different. These traits helped us survive when we were young, but now they are destroying everything around us. So what do? We start over. Hana's eyes were bright with something that might have been hope, or might have been madness. We destroy our ships. We burn our records. We erase every piece of technology that lets us travel between stars. We go back to being a young species on a small planet. We give ourselves time to grow in a different way. Day stared at her. That is insane. You are talking about destroying everything we built. Everything we built is covered in blood, Day. Look at what we have become. We call ourselves civilized. But we have killed more than any plague or disaster in the history of the universe. Is that really what we want our legacy to be? Day was silent for a long time. He thought about Voroth Prime, burning under his warship's guns. He thought about all the other planets he had destroyed. He thought about the emptiness he felt, the hollow space inside him where his soul used to be. The other commanders will never agree, he said. Some will. I have already spoken to Admiral Bo. She supports the plan. So does General Mira. They have seen what we have become. They want a different future. And what about the species that survive? What happens when they find us again? We will be helpless. Hana smiled sadly. That is the point, Dai. We need to be helpless. We need to feel what our victims felt. Maybe then, we will learn to be different. The decision was not easy. It took months of secret meetings, of arguments, of plans within plans. But slowly, the idea spread. The commanders who had seen the worst of the war, who had given the orders to destroy entire civilizations, they understood. They looked at what humanity had become, and they were afraid. Not afraid of enemies, afraid of themselves. The Great Forgetting began on a quiet morning. Across the galaxy, human ships flew into stars. Research stations deleted their data and then destroyed themselves. The great weapons that could break planets were sent into black holes. The soldiers put down their uniforms and forgot their training. On Earth, Day and Hana stood together and watched the last of the great ships burn in the atmosphere. The fires lit up the sky like a second sunrise. Do you think we made the right choice? Day asked. Hana took his hand. I do not know, but I think we made the only choice. The only one that gives our children a chance to be better than us. What if they make the same mistakes? Then they will have to make the same choice. Hana looked up at the burning sky. But maybe they will be wiser. Maybe they will find a different path. There, the fires burned for days. And when they finally went out, humanity began again. Small villages, simple tools, forgotten memories, and in a vault deep under the ground, the records of what they had been were sealed away. waiting for the day when their children would be ready to know the truth. Council member Wu did not trust humans. He sat in his office on the great station called Unity, where the Galactic Council met to govern the thousands of species in the galaxy. Through his window, he could see ships coming and going from 100 different worlds. Some were large warships, some were small trading vessels, and some, he noticed, were human. There were more human ships every year. Wu was a Velaran, like Tay. His silver skin was darker than most of his kind, a sign of his age and wisdom. He had lived for nearly 500 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched young species grow into powerful civilizations, but he had never seen anything like the humans. 200 years ago, when the humans first made contact with the galactic community, they were primitive. They had barely reached their own moon. Their technology was simple, their understanding of science limited. The Council had welcomed them as they welcomed all young species, with patience and gentle guidance, but the humans learned too fast. In just 2 centuries, they had caught up to species that had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. Their ships were now as fast as anyone else's. Their scientists made discoveries that surprised the greatest minds in the galaxy. Their population had spread to dozens of worlds. It was not natural. It was not possible, unless they already knew. Wu opened a file on his screen. It contained everything the Council knew about human history. He had read it many times, looking for clues, looking for the thing that did not fit. The file said that humans had evolved on a planet called Earth. They had developed civilization about 10,000 years ago. They had built cities, fought wars, created art and music. A typical young species, following a typical path. But there were gaps, strange gaps. Wu highlighted one section. According to the file, humans had a period called the Dark Ages, about 7,000 years ago. During this time, much of their knowledge was lost. Their population dropped. Their technology went backward. It was explained as a natural disaster, a period of difficulty that many young species experience. But Wu did not believe it. He touched another section of the file. About 12,000 years ago, humans had suddenly started building large structures. Pyramids, temples, monuments that required advanced understanding of mathematics and engineering. Then, just as suddenly, they had stopped. They had gone back to simple farming and small villages. Another natural disaster, the file said. Another period of forgetting. No, too many coincidences, too many gaps. Wu picked up his communication device and called a number he rarely used. The screen showed a face covered in blue scales. This was Keeper Sol, the chief librarian of the Great Archive, the largest collection of knowledge in the galaxy. Council member Wu, Sol said with surprise. It has been many years. I need access to the oldest records, Wu said. The records from before the founding of the Council. Before the first galactic civilization, Sol's scales changed color slightly. It was a sign of nervousness. Those records are very old. Many are damaged. Some are sealed by ancient laws. I understand. But I must see them. May I ask why? Wu paused. He knew he was walking a dangerous path. If he was wrong about the humans, he would look like a fool. But if he was right, the consequences would shake the entire galaxy. I am looking for ghosts, he said. The ghosts of an empire that no longer exists. Sol was quiet for a moment. Come to the archive tomorrow. I will prepare what I can. The Great Archive was located on a world with no name, in a region of space that belonged to no one. It was neutral ground, protected by ancient treaties that even the most powerful species respected. Wu arrived the next morning. Sol led him deep into the archive, past millions of shelves filled with data crystals and ancient books and artifacts from civilizations long dead. Here, Sol said, stopping at a small room. These are the oldest records we have. They describe the galaxy as it was 15,000 years ago. Wu entered the room and began to read. The records were fragmentary, filled with holes and corrupted data. But piece by piece, a picture began to form. 15,000 years ago, the galaxy had been very different. There had been powerful species that no longer existed. There had been great civilizations that had built wonders beyond imagination. And there had been something called the War of Silence. Wu found references to this war in many different records. It had been terrible. It had killed trillions of beings across thousands of worlds. It had lasted for centuries. And at the end of it, the victors had done something strange. They had disappeared. No records of their departure. No explanation of where they went. One day they were the most powerful force in the galaxy. And the next day they were gone. Their worlds were empty. Their ships were destroyed. Their technology had vanished. The other species had assumed they had destroyed themselves in a final, devastating battle. That was the accepted history. That was what everyone believed. But Wu noticed something that others had missed. The location of this vanished empire. The coordinates of their home system. He checked them against modern star maps. His hands began to shake. The coordinates pointed to a yellow star in a quiet corner of the galaxy. A star with 8 planets. The third planet from the star was small and blue and covered with water. Earth. Wu sat back in his chair. His mind was spinning with possibilities. The humans had not emerged 200 years ago. They had returned. They had been the victors of the War of Silence, the most powerful empire in galactic history. And then, for reasons Wu could not understand, they had chosen to disappear. "Saul," he called. "I need to see records of the Galactic Council's first contact with humanity. Every detail." Saul brought the records. Wu read them with new eyes. The human diplomats had seemed so humble, so eager to learn. They had asked simple questions. They had expressed wonder at technology they should not have understood. But now Wu saw through the act. The questions they asked were too precise. The things they expressed wonder at were exactly the things that had changed since they had been gone. They had been gathering intelligence, learning what had happened in their absence. They knew. They had always known. Wu stood up suddenly. "I need to return to Unity immediately. There is something I must investigate." "Did you find what you were looking for?" Saul asked. Wu looked at the ancient records, at the ghost of an empire written between the lines. "I found more than I wanted to find," he said, "and I fear that what I have found will change everything." He walked out of the archive with a terrible weight on his shoulders. The humans had hidden their past for 12,000 years. They had pretended to be young and innocent, while the rest of the galaxy welcomed them as friends. The question now was simple. Why? What were they hiding from? Or, more frightening still, what were they hiding for? Wu did not know the answer. But he intended to find out, even if the truth destroyed everything he believed. Yuna had not slept in 3 days. She sat in the archive, surrounded by glowing containers, reading file after file. Her eyes burned. Her hands shook from too much coffee. But she could not stop. Every file revealed something new, something impossible, something that changed everything she thought she knew. Tay worked beside her. He looked almost as tired as she felt. "I found another one," he said quietly. "Look at this." Yuna walked over to his screen. It showed technical diagrams, blueprints for something massive and complex. "What am I looking at?" she asked. "The jump gates." Tay's voice was barely a whisper. "The ancient jump gates that connect the galaxy. The ones that every species uses to travel between stars. The ones that have been there for so long that nobody remembers who built them. What about them?" Tay turned to look at her. His silver face was pale with shock. "Humans built them. Your ancestors. They designed them, constructed them, and placed them across the galaxy 12,000 years ago." Yuna felt like the floor had disappeared beneath her feet. The jump gates were the foundation of galactic civilization. Without them, travel between stars would take years instead of hours. Every species depended on them. Every trade route, every alliance, every war had been shaped by their locations, and humans had built them. "That is not all," Tay continued. He opened another file. "Look at this." The file contained genetic records, DNA sequences. Yuna did not understand most of it, but she could read the summary at the bottom. The Valorans, she said slowly, reading the text. The Keth. The Pale Ones. The Singing Folk. She looked up at Tay. These are all species in the current galactic community. Yes, and according to these records, humans created them. Created them? Seeded them. Humans found worlds that could support life and engineered species to live there. They used their own DNA as a template and mixed it with native organisms. Every species in the galaxy, Una, every one of us, we all carry a piece of humanity inside us. Una sat down heavily. The weight of this truth was too much to hold standing. Your people, she said to Tay. The Valorans. You are our children? Tay nodded slowly. In a way, yes, all of us. The entire galactic community exists because humans made it exist. Why did they not tell us? Why did they hide this? Tay scrolled through more files. I am trying to find out. The records are not complete, but I think I understand part of it. He found a file labeled Final Council Meeting and opened it. It was a transcript of a conversation between leaders, dated 2 days before the Great Forgetting. Una read the words on the screen. Commander Day spoke first. The seeded species are growing well. The Valorans have achieved spaceflight. The Keth are building their first cities. In 1,000 years, they will fill the galaxy with life, Scientist Hana responded. And that is why we must disappear. We designed them to be like us, but better, less violent, more cooperative. If we stay, we will corrupt them. We will teach them our wars, our hatreds, our fears. Admiral Bo asked. And what of the jump gates? Should we destroy them? Hana replied. No. The jump gates are our gift to them. Let them use them to build something better than we could. But they must believe they found the gates. Not that we built them. They must believe they earned their civilization. Not that we gave it to them. The transcript continued for several pages. Una read every word. These ancient leaders had seen what humanity had become. They had destroyed 47 species in their wars of expansion. They had become conquerors, destroyers, monsters, and they had been horrified by themselves, so they had created new life. Peaceful species based on human DNA, but engineered to be gentler, kinder, better. They had placed jump gates across the galaxy to help these new species grow and connect, and then they had erased themselves from history, giving their children a chance to build a civilization without the shadow of human violence hanging over them. They sacrificed everything, Una said softly. Their empire, their technology, their history, all so that the species they created could have a fresh start. It is the most selfless thing I have ever read, Tay said. And the most terrifying. Why terrifying? Tay pointed to another part of the transcript. Because they knew they could not change human nature. They could erase memories. They could destroy technology. But the violence inside humanity, the competitive drive that made them conquer the galaxy in the first place, that would still be there. Sleeping. Waiting. Una read the section he indicated. Hana had written, We must seal away the records of what we were. Not to hide our shame, but to protect our descendants. If future humans learn of our power too soon, before they have grown wise, they will make the same mistakes we made. They will become conquerors again. The blood we spent 12,000 years washing away will return. So the archive is not just a record, Una said. It is a warning. Yes, and we have opened it. Una stood up and walked to the door of the archive. She looked out at the tunnel that led back to the surface. Back to a world that had no idea what lay beneath it. There is more, Tay said behind her. One more file. I think you need to see it. She turned back. Tay had found a file labeled The Awakening Protocol. What is that? Tay opened it. Instructions. Left by Hana and Day 12,000 years ago. Instructions for what to do when the archive is discovered. The file was long and detailed. It described a system hidden inside the archive, a machine that had been waiting all this time. When activated, it would send a signal across the galaxy. That signal would wake up technology buried on every world that humans had ever touched. Weapons, ships, defense systems. All of it dormant. All of it waiting. They planned for this, Yuna said. They knew that someday, someone would find the archive. And they built a way to restore everything they had destroyed. But look at the condition, Tay said, pointing to a line of text. The protocol can only be activated by a human, and only if there is a threat that humanity cannot survive without its old power. A reset button. They gave us a reset button. Yuna looked at the machine described in the file. It was somewhere in this archive, hidden among the thousands of containers. A single switch that could transform humanity from a young, peaceful species back into the conquerors they had once been. We cannot activate this, she said firmly. Whatever happens, we cannot let humanity become what it was before. I agree, Tay said. But that is not our decision alone to make. Others will want this power. Your governments. Your military. When they learn what is here, they will want to use it. Yuna knew he was right. The temptation would be too strong. A button that could give humanity ultimate power over the galaxy. No leader would be able to resist pressing it. Then we keep it secret, she said. We seal the archive again. We tell no one what we found. And if someone else finds it, what if there are other archives on other worlds? Yuna had no answer. She looked at the glowing containers. At 12,000 years of hidden history, her ancestors had tried to escape their nature by destroying everything they had built, but they had known, even then, that it might not work. That someday, humanity might need to remember. The question was not whether that day would come. The question was whether humanity would be ready for it. The attack came without warning. Ships appeared in the sky above 100 worlds at the same moment. They were black and angular, covered in symbols that no one recognized. They did not communicate. They did not negotiate. They simply began to destroy. In the first hour, 3 billion people died. Yuna watched the news reports with horror. The images showed cities burning, space stations torn apart, entire fleets reduced to debris. The attacking ships were faster, stronger, and more advanced than anything in the galactic community. The council called an emergency meeting. Representatives from every species gathered on Unity Station, speaking over each other in panic and fear. Who are they? Someone demanded. Where did they come from? How do we stop them? No one had answers. Tay found Yuna in her quarters, staring at a screen that showed more images of destruction. His silver face was grim. The council has made a decision, he said. They are going to surrender. They will offer whatever the attackers want in exchange for peace. End quote. Yuna shook her head. That will not work. Look at them. They are not conquerors. They are exterminators. They do not want resources or territory. They want us dead. I know. Tay sat down beside her. I have been studying their ships. The technology is strange. Ancient. It reminds me of something. The old records? Yes. I think these attackers are from outside our galaxy. I think they may have been waiting, watching, for a very long time. Perhaps they were enemies of the old human empire. Perhaps they finally found us again. Yuna felt ice in her stomach. The thing that humanity was running from 12,000 years ago. The reason they destroyed everything and started over. Perhaps. The records were not clear about why humans became so violent. But what if they were not conquering for conquest's sake? What if they were preparing for something, building an army to fight an enemy that had not yet arrived? The idea was terrible. It meant that everything, the wars, the destruction, the 47 species that humans had wiped out, might have been preparation for this moment. A defense against a threat so severe that human leaders had been willing to become monsters to fight it. And then they had thrown away all their weapons and chosen to forget. The awakening protocol, Yuna whispered. Yes, she stood up suddenly. No, I will not do it. I will not turn humanity into what it was before. There has to be another way. There is no other way. Tay said quietly. I have run the calculations. The galactic fleet will be destroyed within a week. The colonies will fall within a month. Within a year, every intelligent species in the galaxy will be extinct. Then we fight with what we have. We will lose. Then we lose. Yuna's voice cracked. We lose as who we are, not as monsters. That is what Day and Hana chose 12,000 years ago. They chose to let humanity die rather than let it keep killing. Tay was silent for a long moment. I understand your feelings, but I must tell you something. What? I am not just a historian. I am also a descendant of the species that humans created. The Valorans carry human DNA inside us. The Keth do as well. The Pale Ones. The Singing Folk. All of us. We are your children. In a way. Yuna looked at him with surprise. You knew? I suspected. When I saw the records in the archive, I confirmed it. Humans made my people. Yuna. They gave us life. And now, watching us die, they have a chance to save us. Not as conquerors, but as parents protecting their children. But the power in that archive will corrupt us. We will become what we were before. Maybe, or maybe 12,000 years was enough time to change. Maybe humans have grown since then. Maybe this time, you will use the power differently. Yuna wanted to argue. But the news screen flashed with a new alert. Another world had fallen. More billions dead. The attackers were moving faster now. As if they sensed that victory was close, she thought about Day and Hana, watching their empire burn. They had believed that the only way to save humanity's soul was to destroy its power. But they had also left the archive. They had also built the Awakening Protocol. They had known that someday, humanity might need to choose again. I need time to think, she said. There is no time. Tay pointed at the screen. The attackers will reach Earth in 3 days. Whatever you decide, you must decide. Now. Whoa. Tay pointed at the screen. 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 Whatever you decide, you must decide. Yuna closed her eyes. In the darkness behind her eyelids, she saw 2 paths. One path led to peace and death. Humanity would die as it was, young and humble and innocent. The other path led to power and uncertainty. Humanity would rise again, terrible and mighty, and no one knew what it would become. Come with me, she said. They traveled back to the archive. The tunnel was the same, dark and old and forgotten. But this time, Yuna walked with purpose. She knew where she was going. The Awakening Protocol was in the deepest part of the archive, behind a door that only opened to human touch. Inside was a simple room with a single console. Yuna stood before it. Are you certain? Tay asked. No, she admitted. I am not certain of anything. But I know that I cannot watch everyone die without trying to save them. Whatever humanity becomes, whatever monsters we might be, at least we will have a chance to be better. She placed her hand on the console. The machine recognized her. Screens lit up with ancient symbols. A voice spoke in a language that humans had not used for 12,000 years, but somehow Yuna understood every word. Identity confirmed. Human descendant detected. Awakening protocol ready. Do you wish to proceed? Yuna thought of Day, standing on his warship and watching worlds burn. She thought of Hana, weeping as she erased everything humanity had built. She thought of all the dead, the billions killed by humans, and the billions being killed now. She thought of the choice. Yes, she said, I wish to proceed. The signal went out across the galaxy. Deep beneath the surface of 1,000 worlds, machines that had slept for 12,000 years began to wake. Ships that had been buried as mountains rose into the sky. Weapons that could break planets hummed with power again. And humanity remembered, not through words or images, but through something deeper. Every human in the galaxy felt it at the same moment. A connection to their ancestors, to the warriors and builders and destroyers who had once ruled the stars. They remembered the wars. They remembered the victories. They remembered the terrible price of power. and they remembered the choice. On Earth, on colony worlds, on space stations across the galaxy, humans looked up at the sky and understood what they had been, what they had done, what they had sacrificed to become something different. The attackers noticed the change. Their advance slowed. Their sensors detected thousands of new ships rising from hidden locations. They detected weapons powering up that should not have existed. For the first time in their long war against the galaxy, they felt something they had never felt before: fear. Yuna stood in the archive, watching data scroll across the screens. The human fleet was forming. The weapons were ready. The battle would begin soon. Tay stood beside her. "Whatever happens next," he said, "remember why you did this. To save everyone. Yes. Hold on to that. When the power tries to corrupt you, when the old violence rises inside, remember that you chose this to save lives, not to take them. That is the difference. That is what makes this time different from before." Yuna nodded. She did not know if humanity could resist its old nature. She did not know if they would become conquerors again, or if they would find a better path. But she knew one thing. 12,000 years ago, humanity had faced a choice between power and peace. They had chosen peace, even though it meant death. Now, Yuna had made a different choice. She had chosen power, even though it meant risk. The future was uncertain. The outcome was unknown. But for the first time in 12,000 years, humanity had a chance to prove that they could be strong without being monsters. That they could fight without becoming the enemy. That they could remember their past without repeating it. The choice had returned. And this time, humanity would face it with open eyes.